Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll give folks a couple minutes to get started here to join. Okay. Well, we have a quick 30 minutes today, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. We're glad you're here today. My name is Kaya Swift. I'm the marketing director for Heller Consulting. Today's presentation is all about Salesforce, about getting ready for Salesforce and key strategies that we have for higher education advancement teams. Before we get started, a few things. All of your attendee lines are muted, so if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, please put them in the question box, and we encourage you to do so for Jennifer to answer at the end of our time today. As I mentioned, this is a 30-minute session, and we will send you the recording and the slides for this presentation tomorrow. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Jennifer, who is going to be leading our discussion today. Jennifer, could you please tell us a bit about yourself and your role here at Heller?
Sure thing. Thanks, Kaya. My name is Jennifer Thal, as you can see on that slide. I am the business lead for the Salesforce practice here at Heller Consulting. So that means that I am a member of Heller's senior leadership. I oversee our team of Salesforce consultants, as well as our portfolio of Salesforce clients and projects. I've been with Heller Consulting for just shy of 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in June. And so that means that I've seen a lot of Salesforce projects in my day of all different shapes and sizes. And I've also seen Salesforce itself change quite a bit during that time frame.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here, Jennifer. For more context about Heller, here's a quick snapshot. We've been in the nonprofit and higher ed technology space since 1996, and we've been an official Salesforce partner since 2008. As Jennifer mentioned, we've implemented Salesforce for hundreds of organizations in those years, guiding teams from strategy through implementation and post-launch support. We're a team of folks across the United States and Canada, and all of us come from either a nonprofit or higher education background. And we have those project management, change management, and of course, those technical Salesforce certifications. We're proud to only serve nonprofit and higher education institutions, and we are a certified B Corporation that we consider ourselves to be a values-driven company where we have a lot of internal initiatives that increase belonging for our staff and our clients. Today's agenda, we're going to be first talking about understanding the different options for you in the marketplace when you're thinking about going to Salesforce. We're going to be talking about building the right team and skills, benefits for adopting a phased approach, developing a data strategy, the importance of change management, and then we will wrap up with your questions. So Jennifer, to kick us off, we have an analogy that we commonly use at Heller that is about how moving to a new system like Salesforce is like moving to a new house. So maybe if you could start us off there.
Sure. It's definitely like moving to a new house, and depending on how big of a change this might represent for your institution, it may even be like moving to a new house in a brand new city or even a brand new country. It includes a lot of change. But first and foremost, the process starts with the decision to move and planning for moving. So first you need to decide, I need to move, and where that will be and why. And that's going to be comparable to the process of analyzing those marketplace options and deciding upon a system and product solution that will be most beneficial and the best fit for your institution. And that decision-making process is very unique from one organization to another. There's no one-size-fits-all system that will make every single institution happy for all of the same reasons, just as each of your institutions is going to be unique in the way that you operate and what you prioritize. Then when we get into actual planning and preparation for that move, there's a lot of decisions that get to be made. And it's important to do those as early as possible in the process so as not to be surprised down the line. But a lot of this has to do with making decisions about what you want to bring with you and what you want to leave behind or change. Because oftentimes when in that transition, whether to a new house or to a new technical system, you might not need the same things, whether it's related to data or processes or how those interrelate with one another. And then, of course, you do all of this planning and preparation and all of this decision making about what you think the new house is going to be like and feel like and act like. And then you get to your moving day or your launch day. And then you realize, oh, wait, the work isn't necessarily done just because I've physically gotten to the new house. You have to unpack and reorganize all of your belongings into their new location. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of time and maybe some tinkering to make sure that you've got the right pieces or the right furniture or the right elements in the right place now that your space is different and is going to be used differently. And that does just take a little bit of time and settling in, and moving to a new CRM is no different. So I am going to talk a little bit about some of the key options available in the marketplace that are specific to advancement for education institutions. Um, I will say these are certainly not the only decision-making factors about why an organization might choose one option or the other, but that's what I'm focusing on for today. Um, in terms of managed package solutions that are built or managed by third-party vendors, the main ones that we see in the marketplace for advancement are Advancement RM, which is built by a company called Affiniquest. Sometimes you'll just hear it referred to as Affiniquest. That's an application that is built for essential advancement needs, from tracking biographical information about constituents to managing appeals and fundraising campaigns, prospect and proposal management, and various types of gift entry and gift processing for both gifts and pledges in their many flavors. And of course, tracking all kinds of different engagement with constituents, from volunteering or event information. So that's Advancement RM by Affiniquest. We also see a lot of institutions adopting Ascend, built by a company called UC Innovation. And a quick note there, UC Innovation actually just joined forces with iWave, a donor research and wealth screening company that you might be familiar with. And so they are now jointly known as KindSight. This is a very fresh change. That this announcement was just made at the end of February. So expect for me to trip up and say, UC Innovation instead of KindSight, but also two, it means that we can expect to see changes to both their branding and their product offerings, as they've wedded these two companies and they're bringing functionality from each side to bring something new or modified to the table. But the details of what that will look like are still TBD, but exciting to see what might be coming down the pipe. But Ascend in its current version is another application that's built tailor-made for advancement. So it has core modules related to biodemo or biographical demographic information, gift processing, of course, prospect management and research. They also have a grateful patient module, which is geared towards institutions who also have a hospital or a medical center as part of their university structure. And they also have a constituent portal, which is all around engaging alumni, both for online giving and being able to see and access their giving history, accessing events, clubs, groups, an online directory. There's a lot of functionality built into that constituent portal. So Ascend and Affiniquest are the two kind of main managed package offerings that we see for advancement. And then on the flip side, we actually have a new offering that's built and managed by Salesforce rather than a third-party company. And so this is called Education Cloud. And sometimes I call it the new Education Cloud, because while Salesforce has sold something called Education Cloud for many years now, they actually relaunched a brand new product last year that is giving education institutions access to new types of functionality that they hadn't had access to before. So Education Cloud does include features that are specific to advancements and fundraising processes and operations, but Education Cloud also includes features across the whole student life cycle, from recruitment and admissions to student success while they're currently enrolled. So what the diagram that you can see on the screen is illuminating is that they're a little bit different. So the Ascend and AffiniQuest options are managed packages that are essentially built on top of or technically installed into the Salesforce environment. Whereas Education Cloud is what's called built on core. So it does not exist as a managed package that is managed by another vendor. It's built directly into that Salesforce platform and it's managed directly by Salesforce. And I have to say right up front, to an end user, this distinction doesn't matter at all. It won't impact their experience. They won't be able to tell the difference between which features they're accessing that are part of a managed package and which features they're accessing that are part of core. But it does matter from a kind of a taking a step back at an institution level or at a technical level, it might change who do you reach out to for product support? Or what types of enhancements or innovation might you see over time? Like the decisions that Salesforce makes might be different than the decisions that KindSight/UC Innovation makes, that it might be different than the decisions that AffiniQuest makes about how to evolve and innovate on their respective product offerings. And so I will say, like I said, there's no one size fits all approach that will make every institution happy. And each of these companies has their own style, approach, and vision. And so likewise, each of your institutions has your own style, culture, processes, and data. And so it's all about choosing what is the best fit for you. And last comment on this slide is, for what it's worth, Heller has a lot of experience with helping organizations do solution selections for all kinds of technology offerings. So we know that it's easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis, and they're all great options for different reasons. So definitely, if you feel like you're getting stuck, reach out to us and we can help you determine the best path forward for your org. All right, so once you've made the decision to move and you've decided this is going to be the house that I move into, so to speak, then it's all about the actual project planning. So you want to start planning out what you actually are trying to accomplish during that first implementation project. Your actual implementation of Salesforce should be aligned with your institution's goals and what your highest priorities are, or your highest pain points sometimes. And what that means is that, for one, actually define goals, like write them down somewhere, put them in a PowerPoint, put them on a poster board, whatever it is, but actually define them. Because the more that you actually create specific and concrete goals, the better you'll be able to tell that you actually achieved them, or are you, straying off track a bit as your project proceeds forward. Implementation projects are going to have a lot of decisions to make, both in this initial planning phase and throughout the whole course of the project. And having specific goals in mind will keep you oriented in the right direction. So which option of many will help me achieve that goal that I've set out? So I really like this matrix, which is helpful for deciding like what items to focus on during a project based on those items' alignment with your organization's goals. Because it's easy to say, I want it all. I want all of the bread and butter things. I want all of the bells and whistles. I want absolutely everything. And that would be great if you had infinite time and budget, but nobody has infinite time and budget. And so we need to prioritize what actually is happening. So I always recommend that your core project scope and timeline should be structured around that blue quadrant. So those are things that are very mission critical to achieve, but it's going to take some time and effort to get there. And so you're going to need the full breadth of your project timeline to focus on those goals, focus on that functionality, move those forward through the project and get them right for launch. Next, you can start layering in the items in the green quadrant, which are lower difficulty to implement, but still really valuable to accomplish as part of that project timeline. And that'll help build excitement for using the new tool and accomplishing quick wins or process improvements so that people are really energized by what's going to be like a big change for them in their day-to-day. Last, incorporating the yellow quadrant, and those can be peppered in as time and budget allow for. They're less likely to add risks to the project because they're low difficulty to put into place. But if they end up falling off of the list altogether because, priorities shift or risks arise for other reasons, it's okay if some of those yellow items fall off and get deferred for a later phase because they weren't that important to begin with. That last pink quadrant of low importance but high difficulty items, that usually starts shaping the next phase of like future enhancements or future project work. Because those items are not quite as important to focus on in that initial timeline for the short-term implementation. All right, so you've got a solution selected, you've got a general plan that's built around your goals. What happens next? You need to build out a team. So determining your core project team members is really mission critical. It should be relatively small. Small can be relative based on your organization size, but we don't want every single member of your organization to be participating in the implementation project itself. So these are going to be individuals who have the capacity to contribute to a project on top of their regular responsibilities. And sometimes that means reassigning people's responsibilities to create space for them to actually move this project forward. These are often going to be these core project team members, they're going to be team leads or managers or maybe users that have a really long tenure at your institution. And so they have a lot of historical knowledge of why do we do things the way that we do things, or what does this data point mean or represent. It's really important to have team members that they actually hold decision-making authority within the team and for the project as a whole. Because if every time you get to a decision, if we need to go loop in some third party to get that decision made, it's going to slow things down every step of the way. And in general, you want people who are collaborative and who have a problem-solving attitude because, like I said, there's a lot of work that's going to need to get done, and having people who are interested and invested in that work will help make it, both doable and more enjoyable along the way. Next, you want to make sure that you identify your subject matter experts. So those won't be as involved in the day-to-day project work, but they are absolutely critical to bring in at certain key project activities. So these are going to be people who participate and contribute heavily to discovery. So helping a vendor or an implementation partner understand your needs and your processes and your data, and helping them understand what you're trying to achieve in the new system. These subject matter experts are critical for collaborating on design decisions because they know the way that they're doing processes today and what are the necessary components that have to move forward to the new system. They're also going to be really important to have during testing so that they can start validating that the system is working as we need it to. So these are definitely people who are kind of deep in the weeds about the data and processes of today, your status quo. They also understand what the current pain points are in your current system and can provide suggestions for improvement. Even if they don't know exactly how that will be achieved in the new system, they know the right areas to focus on to resolve a pain point. And again, you want people with a collaborative and problem-solving attitude. Like there's going to be things that get designed and then redesigned and then tweaked and tested. A lot of things can be fluid during the course of the project, so you want to get people who are a little bit open-minded about contributing and weighing into that process rather than being kind of scared and put off by the fact that it's not all done yet. And then last but not least, you want to determine some outside resources that will help supplement your team. So this will include both actual implementation partners, potentially someone who has project management support, and even extra staff or reassigned staff to help take over some of the regular responsibilities of those people who are contributing to the project itself, either as subject matter experts or especially those core project team members. So you want to make a plan for building capacity for the project, but making sure that other responsibilities don't fall off the radar. Another big piece is going to be starting to identify who your system administrators will be in the new system in Salesforce. Depending on how big your institution is, you might have one or two or more than that. And for system administrators, it's also really helpful if they're involved in the project as they go, so they get exposure to the way that the product works and the types of decisions that users are making and project team members are making about design and data and processes. And last but not least, make sure that you have a plan for training your staff on Salesforce. And that can be done either entirely by an outside resource, entirely internally, or a hybrid. So we really like the train the trainer approach at Heller, where we as the implementation partner will provide training to a small core set of key users or power users, and then they in turn are responsible for helping to train the broader, more extended set of end users, because they're better able to translate some of the legacy processes, or especially the steps of a process that happen outside of the system itself, and put it into the terms that an end user will understand and how to use the new system. And there's outside resources that are available on like ad hoc by Salesforce itself. So Salesforce has the Trailhead platform for learning, and that's a really great resource for especially those system administrators, but even any type of user, just helping them get accustomed to navigation, and everything looks and feels different from what you were accustomed to before. So definitely leverage those resources that are available. All right. So getting your data ready for Salesforce. Data is everything. Data is, of course, one of your greatest assets as an organization. And you'll find that when you're going through one of these projects, it's really going to shine a light on some corners of your legacy database that you might not have looked at in quite some time. So first and foremost, you want to be making decisions about what to keep and bring into the new system and what to leave behind. So just like moving to a new house, you're going to find a lot of things that you haven't looked at in years, the stuff that's at the back of your closet or hidden in that kitchen drawer that all of the random odds and ends get put into. The same thing is going to happen in your database, and you don't have to bring it all over if you can no longer identify the rhyme or reason for why it exists in your database today. Um, You'll also start identifying if there's data that you think that you need to bring forward, but you've identified that it's gotten messy over time, whether it's because of duplication or that the process for tracking this data has changed over the years. Everyone has a little bit or a lot of messy data, and that is going to come to light as part of your migration process into the new system. So part of this process will be making decisions about, do we clean it up now, and is there benefit that we can get while we're still in the legacy system before we're live in the new system by putting that attention into cleaning it, or do we defer that to later and do it in the new system, potentially leveraging some of the new tools to do that data cleansing? Understanding data storage needs is really important. So in Salesforce, you're obviously going to be paying for user licensing, both the core platform licensing, plus any additional apps from third parties, whether it's the core, Ascend or AffiniQuest licensing, or other apps that you might, install from the Salesforce App Exchange. So you're paying for licensing, but you're also paying for data storage. That's the other kind of main cost in moving to Salesforce. And so knowing how much data you have and want to bring over will help inform what your potential data storage costs will be in Salesforce. And if those costs get, a little bit high, that might force you to make some decisions about some of the data that can and should be left behind. Um, Data storage and file storage. So a lot of people who are moving to Salesforce for the first time don't always realize that these are different counts, or these are tracked separately in Salesforce. Those files can definitely add up in size rather quickly. And while they absolutely can be stored in Salesforce as attachments to records, sometimes that's not always the best place for those attachments, depending on how they need to be used by users. Next, we always recommend doing at least 2 test conversions of your data before you actually go live, because it just gives users more time to make sure that they've put the data in the right locations in Salesforce and that they're going to get the most accurate and complete data conversion possible. And it's never too early to start thinking about data governance. So thinking about who owns and maintains which data and how your organization makes decisions about what data we track and how. So oftentimes we recommend that orgs establish a committee of some sort so that different teams can kind of weigh in about what that process for tracking data needs to look like. All right, so I have already talked about some of these a little bit, but each of the systems that you might move to and each of the flavors of Salesforce that you might move to is going to have a very different data model. So you are going to want to learn through your project what those differences are, what the new terminology is, and expect that your data from your legacy system is not going to migrate one-to-one in exactly the same structure and format into Salesforce. And the differences are going to be, you know, if you're moving from Razor's Edge to a FiniQuest versus Razor's Edge to Ascend versus Razor's Edge to Education Cloud, each of those is going to have a slightly different feel for how the data models differ. It's also nice that Salesforce has a lot of third-party deduplication tools available, usually at an extra cost, but they do provide a lot of functionality that's essential to keeping your database clean. And think about whether a data warehouse would be part of your future technology ecosystem. You might be able to get more and deeper long-term historical analysis and trend reporting on your data by moving some of it into a data warehouse, especially if data from other systems, potentially even outside of advancement, can be supplemented in that warehouse. All right, change management. So communicate, communicate, communicate early and often. People need to know what to expect, what's in it for them, what they're going to gain from this process in the end of it, but also what will be expected of them through the process and what resources they have available in the meantime and after launch. Bring key stakeholders into that process as early as possible. You're going to want both champions who can cheerlead and raise enthusiasm for the new processes and the new products, as well as potential dissenters, because they might bring up some really valid concerns that need to be addressed. I think
Awesome.
that's it.
So I know we have just a few minutes left here, and I know some of you may have to jump for another call, so I'm going to leave you this slide and then we'll go back to questions. So I will be sending all of you the recording and slides from today's presentation tomorrow. I'll also be providing some additional resources that we have specifically for advancement teams. And then if you have an immediate need or a project that you'd like to discuss or just get, a third opinion on something, I encourage you to get in touch with Shane Seguino, who runs our higher education. He's our director of higher education development. So I encourage you to get in touch with him. His contact information is on the screen there. And then with our final couple of minutes here, we'll go to some questions. And I know a couple of you sent your questions ahead of time. But if you have anything remaining, feel free to ask it here. So we did have several questions about specifically coming from different Blackbaud products and then going to Salesforce. So I'm going to, for time's sake, kind of lump them all into one because it is a big change going from a Blackbaud system of some kind over to Salesforce. So Jennifer, any final advice or thoughts specific to that?
Yeah, it's definitely a very big change. A lot of it starts with terminology differences and extends to different data models, as I've touched on. One of the biggest differences, which I think Salesforce is, in my biased opinion, somewhat better at, is in Razor's Edge and Blackbaud solutions, everything that you need to customize to track things specific to your institution gets created as an attribute. And that's great, but it can be somewhat limiting that those are all just kind of like tacked on separately from the core, constituent records or gift records or fund records or what have you. In Salesforce, attributes or custom fields are not like segregated to a different table. We're able to create custom fields that you need to track directly on whether it's the contact record or an organization record or a campaign record, any table at all. And they're immediately available for reporting or for API use or anything at all. It just shows up and it's there and it's readily available to weave into the business processes as we need. So that's one of the key differentiators. But it does represent a really big change, just going from any flavor of Blackbaud to any flavor of Salesforce. So I think expect and plan for a lot of learning, maybe some glossaries to help people understand some of the terminology shifts, and training to support them.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for presenting today, and thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. Have a wonderful
Thanks,
rest of your
everyone.
afternoon.